I'm just thinking about all the nuns that used to sprinkle holy water on me during class to get the demon out of me. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is October 13th, and I am Eric Planey.
Hello, I'm Lucas Finko.
And we are, of course, the Pirates of Clean Tech.
Yar,
Arr. I don't know. Before we started taping, we were talking about it's been in the Northeast at least the last 2 days. It's been gray and rainy. We had beautiful fall weather before that, but definitely a day for a wonderful Yingling, one of the oldest breweries in the United States. That's what I'm drinking today. That was in my fridge.
Yeah.
Not that.
Freaking Sam Adams Oktoberfest, which is my favorite year round.
Is that more of a? It looks like it's more of a dark beer, right?
Yeah, it's a Munich malt, so it's pretty good. Yeah, not too dark.
Had it. I have a tough time with the Munich malts.
Too dark, but
yeah, I mean, do they even have Oktoberfest this year? Probably not, right?
Probably not. Yeah.
Wow. Let's get past 2020 so we can get back to some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, please.
Hope everybody in our podcast and YouTube land are staying safe and your families are staying safe. We were just talking, it looks like the second wave or potentially third wave is coming back, at least here in the Northeast. And I thought 36 states, I think, this morning reported higher cases. So please, everybody, social distancing, wearing masks. Listen to Dr. Fauci. I have to say, actually, this afternoon, Dr. Fauci was a guest on Alan Alda's podcast called Clear and Vivid. And I really recommend it. Just gives a wonderful update about how things are. And I say wonderful in terms of just the intelligence behind that man and his ability to explain what is happening with COVID in simple terms that are understandable.
Who, Alan Alda?
Yeah. No, Dr. Fauci.
No, Dr. Fauci, okay. Yeah.
No, he was on Alan Alda's podcast. Alda's podcast is fantastic.
Is it?
Yeah, because he's done this for years. He's sponsored by Stony Brook University. And Alan Alda has a center of communications there where he helps scientists and doctors and STEM professionals improve their communication skills so they can be more effective at what they do.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. I've been a MASH fan since I was a little boy, and it only gets better as you watch it. And Alan Alda kind of carried that love of medicine and STEM on in his life. He was host of Scientific American on PBS for years.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right. How you doing, Lucas?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty mellow. Been busy. So we missed last week, but it's good to be back and talking about the world of clean tech. There's been a lot going on, so we can't cover it all. So we just have a few stories for this week.
We're going to go quick. Thanks to feedback. We had Jason Kaplan on last as our guest talking about community solar. I got a lot of positive feedback, and we actually have a couple of cases of friends of ours and people we know who are now signing up for community solar because of Jason being on the podcast. So hats off to Jason. And this is exactly what we're trying to do, is trying to educate people about the options related to being engaged in sustainability without having to spend a lot of your own personal resources. And community solar is a perfect capital P example of that.
Yeah, and this week you have some more examples of how people can get involved, right? With little to no effort on their part.
We do, and sometime this week I'm going to finish editing your review of your 2019 Chevy Bolt battery electric vehicle, which is another case of another good vehicle that's affordable and saves you a lot of money on maintenance and gasoline and everything in the long run. So sooner or later I will finish that.
Might need a lot of heavy editing on that one, but we'll see.
Well, you and that filthy mouth of yours always dropping F-bombs.
He cut me off. Just kidding.
So how should we do it today? Should we go right to the articles?
Yeah, I guess so. So you're going to be up first, right? So here we go.
Beauty before age, huh? Oh, wait. No, it's age before beauty.
Something like that.
That's sad. Yeah, so my articles are pretty short and sweet. Again, there is a lot going on, but I feel like we're just I wanted to do a little bit of reviewing of some discussion topics we had earlier in our first season and just following up. And one of the things that I wanted to follow up on was an article I did out of Charge DVs that was more technical about solid state batteries. And I was doing some research and trying to find out, when do people and OEMs and tier one suppliers think solid state is coming to fruition? And it's still varied across industry and across companies. But Green Car Reports had an article on September 28th. Mercedes-Benz is offering world's first solid-state batteries in city bus. And Stephen Edelstein did the article here. Again, I like this story a lot for a couple of reasons. One is, a lot of times buses, in terms of mobility and transportation, are the guinea pigs on new technologies. And part of it is simply because of size and capacity. Buses were some of the first compressed natural gas buses, or vehicles were buses, electric, pure electric, hybrids. And now we have an electric that has a solid state battery. As you know, solid state is pretty much as it sounds. Instead of lithium ion, which has a liquid electrolyte, this has a solid one. And the theory is going to be that they're going to be safer. You're going to get more range, more dependability, and more consistency. They're just going to be slightly less volatile than what we have out of developing lithium ion batteries. So Mercedes-Benz and Daimler has something called the eCitaro G, and these solid-state cells would be used in a 441 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and maximum range is estimated to be about 130, 140 miles in average conditions, and then smartly, they're saying it's going to drop to about 105 miles in winter when the heater is running. And also, this would actually have a fuel cell range extender, which I think is really cool. That could be coming on board in 2022. But I like this a lot because if you think about it, for dense urban environments, especially European cities, German cities, a 105-mile winter loop seems reasonable. That seems like you're going to have a little bit of cushion in the range. So I just really like this report. It talked a little bit then, down below in the article about Panasonic, who's a partner of Toyota, is saying that they feel that it's a decade away before solid state tech really hits mainstream. But Volkswagen is very bullish with a company called QuantumScape. And if I recall, I think QuantumScape is the one that Bill Gates is associated with. They just recently they're going public with a valuation of $3 billion, even though they haven't produced any batteries yet. So obviously we're in this SPAC craze, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. But there's a lot of people that are differentiated in opinion on solid state batteries, but here's Mercedes and Daimler getting to progress practically with a city bus, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it's very good to see this solid state battery coming out and being used. I didn't have a lot of expectation that it was going to come out and be used. I've been hearing a lot of horror stories about it, so I almost thought it was dead. So it's interesting to see this moving forward. I did sit down and watch all of Tesla's battery day. It was kind of technical. They did show a lot of details about the batteries and what they're trying to do to make it cheaper, more affordable, higher energy density, higher energy power output. So it's very interesting to see this going on. And I'm interested to see what happens when they get deployed and how they work in the real world.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me of I should have my full disclosure hat on. I do have a small stake in a company that has some research going on in solid state space. So I'm certainly interested in seeing what happens with it. I think what's happened when you're saying that it kind of went away, there's been so much focus on gigafactories being built. First Panasonic, Tesla, then LG, across the whole world right now. And they're all focused on lithium ion. And the question I think is going to be interesting is how many of these manufacturing facilities are going to have flexible production techniques so that if solid state does come to fruition, they can use those plants. Because that's going to determine how much OEMs and tier one suppliers are going to be pushing on solid state. If it makes for a much more effective battery, they'd be on top of it. If it's only incremental improvement over existing lithium ion, and they would have production changes that would require significant capital expenditure, you may see a pushback on solid state. I suspect we're still going to see it, though, before 2030. I think you're going to see, if not mass adoption, you're going to see serious adoption of solid state batteries in transportation.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. From what I understand, the solid state battery construction is almost totally different. So it could require totally different equipment, right?
Yeah. So I think that's why it's been kind of quiet. I'm going to be following this one, though. I just think it's really interesting, and it's always about kind of the hockey puck analogy that Wayne Gretzky used. everyone's looking at where the puck is right now. We got to look at where the puck's going.
Right.
And I think this is a good one for that.
Cool.
Number one, we're going to be banging them out today, I have a feeling.
Oh, here we go.
Now, this is really a 4-letter word that everyone is talking about, and that's SPACs. So I thought good, trustworthy Forbes magazine, who's always talking about cutting edge on financial products, financial engineering. They have an article from October 6th by Susie Teheranian. I hope I said that right. Nikola and Hylian partner with SPACs. What's next for EV trucks? So obviously we've been talking a lot ourselves and in the media about Nikola. Nikola is on, I think, a PR redemption tour right now, and I say that as a compliment to them. I think with the ousting of their boisterous CEO, they're really kind of trying to prove to the world right now that they're not a house of cards. They are really working hard to show people what technology they have, where their patents are. They're quite public about it. So they are part of, and we're one of the first in the major trend of a special purpose acquisition company where companies are set up looking to acquire companies in a particular industry. And EV supply chain has been all the rage over the summer. They mentioned some companies that are either already successfully SPAC'd or in process. Fisker, as we know, Henrik Fisker, the incredible automotive designer, who's kind of at a 2.0 for a new company with his name on it, is potentially a SPAC candidate. Lordstown Motors in my hometown, which has made the Endurance pickup truck, which I really am starting to get bullish about because I think their strategy is very well. They're teaming up with Diamond Peak, and they may have about $500-600 million in proceeds. They have an assembly plant, so this is going to be a reasonable, good application of SPAC proceeds. And then now, of course, Hylian is being talked about, and these aren't just SPACs for next generation electric vehicle. This is also hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. So if you want to scroll down a little bit, this is an interview with Kevin Landis, who's CEO and president of First Hand Technology Value Fund, which is a venture capital fund, and he's been looking at EVs and EV supply chain for a while. So he's an intelligent voice from the investing community. I think he's guardedly bullish about the idea that SPACs can be a way to accelerate EVs. And I think, we've talked about this in the past about democratizing the electric vehicle. Electric vehicle takes a lot of complicated and safety related engineering out of the vehicle because the internal combustion engine had so many parts and so much adherence to safety. It made new entrants coming into the game very difficult. Tesla proved it otherwise. And now, especially for electric trucks, where the GM and Fords only have a limited investment play or a limited business strategy, you're going to see these new entrants coming into market. And now you're not just seeing electric, but you're seeing hydrogen fuel cell. So this article is really good. It's going to give you just a good background about where SPACs are heading, and if this market is for legitimate. Landis is saying this is a potentially $400 billion market globally. So, and then you have men like Governor Newsom in California, who's talking about 100% zero emission vehicle sales by 2035. All of a sudden, when you're creating by government regulation and incentives such a large market, you're going to have money coming from SPAC. So there's a great graph here talking about some of the players and where they are. On light duty, as you can see, all the big three, some of the J3 and Germans are on the light duty side, all the way to the big stuff, where Nikola, Cummins, BYO, and a few others are really talking about, being big players on heavy duty commercial vehicles. So I think it's a great article. Definitely recommend it. Most of the other stuff is stuff we've talked about. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, SPAC just seems like another financial innovation. It doesn't really seem to make a big difference to me. It doesn't change the company at all, right? It's just a method to go public. So, I just worry when the image gets tarnished, like, IPOs got crazy in 99 and then ICOs got crazy and so many scam artists just lobbed onto it that it got a bad rep. So I hope SPACs don't get that.
Well, I should say to you, SPACs already have a bad rep, in my opinion. SPAC has come back raging in terms of technology, electric vehicles, but SPACs have been around for quite some time. And, they usually have been some kind of characters, quote unquote, in using creating SPACs for investing. But it seems like now, given the transparency of markets being a little bit better than it has been in the past, so far things seem to be reasonable. But I'm shamelessly plugging Lordstown Motors, my hometown company. Someone said, "Hey, at least these guys have a factory," because some of these SPAC money is being chased are for really just almost close to being vapor companies. Those companies that have good ideas, some presentation, maybe one prototype model. They don't have too much more, and their business plan has a lot of holes in it. So I think people just have to, just like everything else, be very careful in what you invest in. We're not taking sides here. We're not that expert. But we just want to tell people, very careful when you invest in a SPAC to make sure you do your homework and to kind of make sure that the company has a really viable business plan that could use, the proceeds will fund something viable.
Yeah, I just don't want people saying, "Oh, EVs. Oh, that's that market where the only way they can raise money is a SPAC, right?"
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're okay in that regard because
Okay.
EVs themselves have already been coming to fruition from Tesla, General Motors, Ford,
Right.
BMW, et cetera. So the legitimate players are in that space. In terms of trucks, that's a different story, right? It could be very well that somebody, uses SPAC proceeds, builds up a medium or heavy duty vehicle, electric or hydrogen portfolio. And then one of the big existing players on the ICE engine side in heavy duty trucks may acquire them, right? So it may be a win-win.
Yeah.
So just, we all have to keep your eyes and just be very eyes wide open if you invest in SPACs for electric and hydrogen.
Okay, sounds good.
What else do I got? Yeah, another one, again, I just wanted to do some kind of follow-up on some articles we've talked about in the past. We've talked a lot about ESG. We've talked about sustainability bonds in the past. There's a difference. There's very subtle differences in definitions. And sometimes media doesn't do a good job of differentiating those definitions. So I like this article from EFTtrends.com from Ben Hernandez on October 8th. Are sustainability-linked bonds the next big thing in ESG? And this one I like because effectively sustainability bonds, in this particular article, it's referring to a Wall Street Journal article, is talking about the fact that it's a new vehicle in which if companies don't hit their hurdles and what they promise their investors of those bonds they are going to meet that are tangibly linked to companies' ESG performance metrics, then they have to pay an increased coupon on that bond to the investors. So there's a penalty. I find that that's the good side. The more in kind of reward for having this embedded structure, companies will then be able to have a little bit more flexibility on the use of the proceeds. So the proceeds may not have to go towards a green project per se. It can go towards paying down existing debt. So something more in its immediacy to give it a little more flexibility in the capital structure or lower cost of capital. But if they don't hit other performance targets that are set forth in the prospectus, then they could be penalized. So I just thought, is this the next big thing? I really don't know. But I think finance officials at companies, CFOs, and treasurers are going to be looking at this as a way to get slightly lower paying interest vehicle through maybe a lower interest coupon. And I think this is something that's going to be highly in consideration. So again, we're all looking, myself included, to be more of an investor in ESG. I like this because I think that this article does a good job of telling you that there's a new product out there and it could be a big thing, and it's slightly different than what we consider a green bond.
Yeah, and they give you ways which anyone can invest. So they give you 3 ticker symbols here that you can buy that are ETFs that hold these bonds. So very easy.
Yeah, so it's another quick one for us, but I like it. I talk to my portfolio manager for my personal account all the time, and he knows that I'm trying to do more in ESG. And so we're always trying to generate ideas. And, I recommend people doing a little bit of your own homework and then, take a look at your retirement account. And right now, ESG funds and ESG ETFs have been holding up in this COVID recession slightly better than just kind of other traditional funds. So not only is it a socially conscious investment that you'll feel better about, but it's actually right now, it looks like it's more beneficial for your retirement account.
Well, and I love these too because it says the company will pay a higher interest rate if they fail to achieve a set of environmental and other goals before the maturity date. So this provides an incentive for companies to be more sustainable and act in a more environmental way. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like it gives them flexibility up front. And I also think that's a good thing in some ways because I think there's a lot of greenwashing that's taken place with the first round of green bonds that came out maybe 10, 12 years ago that people said they're going to be used for green purposes. Here, they're not trying to put that out there. They're saying, look, if we don't hit our targets, then we're going to pay you a higher penalty. But, we want flexibility up front on what we do with the proceeds right now.
yeah.
So, I think it gives sustainability several definitions, which is a win-win for both investors and potentially the company.
Yeah. Okay, last one here, Eric.
This one I was just saying, I need some divine intervention. Everything happening with COVID and 2020, I was seeking some optimism. And I got a lot of good feedback on our last week's article when I referred to Sir David Attenborough's 60 Minutes piece, and how such an incredible person is head on addressing sustainability and climate change. And then all of a sudden this article pops and 12 years of Catholic education, as my mother used to say, I think is paying dividends in the fact that the Vatican News on Vatican Radio, actually came out himself and talked about the moral Pope Francis, who I think whatever religion you may be affiliated with, I think people just really respect him for looking out for the everyday person globally. Pope Francis is talking about the moral imperative to addressing climate change because our world has to be cared for like a shepherd taking care of his flock, to get a little bit religious here. So this article, I think, was written by one of the Vatican officials, Sister Bernadette Mary Rice. And it's just really wonderful. It just talks about, and I think there's a video and audio part to this, but just talks about, I think he used the phrase integral ecology, and talking about the fact that really humans and our ecology are so interconnected. And he gives a 3-step process in terms of talking about what we need to do to benefit society that would also benefit our environment. He talks a lot about water and nutrition, which I think is, having access to drinkable and safe water is something that should be considered a universal human right. I completely 100% agree with that. We saw what happened in Flint, Michigan a couple years ago, and how devastating, illnesses from having such an archaic water system just really kind of collapsed the society there, and how slow it took for government to actually respond to that. And then, so he gives 3 steps, and like step number 3, he actually talks about the transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And he's like, this should not only just be rapid and capable of supplying future energy requirements, but it has to be attentive to how it's going to affect poor local population and those who work in the energy sector. So we've talked about that. I have a friend of mine who said in China, they would love to shut down coal plants and have nothing but wind turbines. But a coal plant employs 300 people, sometimes in very remote areas of China. And a wind farm, once it's constructed, may only employ a handful of people. Yeah. So these are things that have to be addressed. And I think for the Pope to really put his name and the weight of his office behind climate change and addressing it is something that's inspirational for me. And it tells me that we all need to be doing more, because if Pope Francis can take time out and contextualize it in the wake of how we need to be benefiting society and all human beings, it's our right to, it's a moral imperative to make things better for society, then this is just a great way to address it. So I just love this article. Very inspiring for me.
I mean, it's great to see some real leadership on the issue, and somebody who's known as a leader around the world to stand up and speak truth, right? So it's very good to see this. It makes me think that maybe the human species has a fighting chance of surviving our own destruction of the planet, right?
I'm just thinking about all the nuns that used to sprinkle holy water on me during class to get the demon out of me, who caused so many problems. Used to beat me with a ruler. I think I still have scars on my knuckles from the ruler slaps. I think they'd be proud of me that I'm referencing Pope Francis here, but I've been very impressed with Pope Francis from day one. He's just been a pope that really believes that not just the Catholic Church, but all of us need to get into the streets and really find out where the suffering is and not to turn it back to it. And he puts it in context of how all of us who are working to fight to make the climate safer and more sustainable are engaging in that fight. And it just really makes me proud.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Cool.
Thanks for bringing that.
Anytime. All right. Well, those are my four. Very quick and easy and to the point. And then you've got a couple I think are really intriguing as well.
All right, I have a couple, and then I'd like to have a little side discussion about racing after that, if we can, which should be good. But the first one here, I wanted to continue on Jason Kaplan's theme from last weekend with these oil companies and what they're doing. So this one comes from oilprice.com. Texas taxpayers face $117 billion billion with a B, for orphaned oil wells. So basically these oil companies that are going bankrupt now because the price of oil collapsed because demand collapsed, which I guess they don't watch our show. They're just walking away from their oil wells. And this is a problem because they're basically abandoned, and somebody's got to go in and clean them up, shut them down, cap them, make sure they don't leak, etc. And so this cost is going to end up being shouldered by us, by you and me, by the taxpayer. So thank you very much, unsustainable industry, for continuing to be unsustainable and dropping the bill on all of us. So just wanted to point this out, and I'm glad Carolyn wasn't on the show this week, but I let it slip. Oh no, that's going to be next week's guest. So yeah, it's just really upsetting to see this again, and yet another reason why we all should be taking steps to move away from oil consumption, move away from fossil fuel consumption as fast as we can with our own individual choices. So, and we can make a difference.
Let me say this. I've got a couple mixed feelings about this article. One is, we talk about the taxpayers picking up the tab for this. I think that's, it is somewhat deplorable. But bear in mind, these are usually in states where a significant amount of the state's resources were generated from tax revenues from oil and gas. So if the state was smart, they would have an environmental reserve to handle these. What would be smarter, in my opinion, is every permit given for an oil and gas well, either over the last 20 years, should have had a reserve set in place to handle capping costs.
Correct.
Right? I mean, this stuff's not, this is 101.
Right.
I got upset because when I was in the middle of the shale boom in Ohio, Governor Kasich was proposing taxes on the oil and gas industry that was right in the middle of the U.S. average. He wasn't the highest and he wasn't the lowest. And the oil and gas industry lobbyists were all over the state of Ohio to say that they're going to walk away from the state because of this tax regime. But when you talk to the actual guys in the field, the industry guys were all saying, now, you know what? We should be paying our fair share in taxes to a state government. Mm-hmm. So it's really the lobbying effort that really drives me nuts because it gives the gas industry a bad name, and it's their own lobbyists. Most of the guys in the field want to do what's right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to do. I want to stick up for the guys in the field because every one of them I talk to want to do the right thing. It's just a certain select group of people who are incentivized to have victories and the lowest taxes passed, et cetera. That really annoys me. And
so lobbyists
issues like this.
Huh? Yeah, lobbyists are the root of all evil.
Pretty close.
And you're right. I mean, the nuclear industry, they don't wait for this to happen. They have decommissioning funds and they have to fund them. I mean, Indian Point has decommissioning funds and one of them's fully funded. It's like $150 million, which is of the same order, right? Is this. So I don't know. I don't know why they just had a lapse on this one.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder.
Well, okay. Good point. The other one I had was wind sector trend helping to minimize bird deaths. This is from my friends at Green Tech Media. They're talking about some innovations to help reduce avian mortality. And one of them is bigger turbines. So we show here, this is by Jason Dine from October 1st. Even more colossal turbines might be key to cutting down bird deaths, because especially offshore, they talk about how the birds like to stay near the water offshore. And so if you can increase that distance where the blades don't go down near the water,
Mm.
you can reduce bird deaths. So they talk about, these new turbines are huge, but they leave a gap of around 40 meters. Wow, that's 120 feet. So they have significantly lower bird deaths from these turbines. And another one, they have another study that they point to showing that if you paint the wind turbine blades black, you could get a reduction of more than 70% of bird deaths just by painting the blades black. So that certainly doesn't hurt anyone. They may have to put some lights on it for keeping planes away, but shouldn't be a problem.
I
So
think, anyways, I think.
good to see. Good to see developments here.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about maybe at the very end of the blade, they could just put little scarecrows, right? So you got these whirling scarecrows on the ends of the blades
Spiders, yeah,
around Halloween, right? I think it'd be kind of
scary
cool.
spiders.
No, I think it's great. Again, we talked about this in the context of LeadCo on Lake Erie near Cleveland, who, they were having a political holdup and they were saying that bird migrations from Canada were going to be impacted by putting these 6 prototype turbines up. So having solutions and having the fact that the industry is addressing, avian, sanctuaries and, avian life, 100% for it. It shows that, I think the actors in renewable energy, for the most part, want to do the right things and they're thinking of the ecosystem around them. So technology can always be an answer. Here's another example of that.
Yeah, so your friends in Lake Erie can use this, right?
Well, I think so. In that particular case, they're going to use some small turbines to just prove the freshwater theory because they're
Okay.
the first installed freshwaters in the United States. But as time goes on, but if you think about ocean offshore, I think they're already talking about bigger turbines.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think New Jersey and New York are fighting over who's going to have the biggest turbines, right?
Probably. Probably. I'm pretty sure they are. Yes.
Murphy versus Cuomo.
I just um I just wanted to take a couple minutes though to talk about something I don't have an article on because not many people are talking about this yet. It's kind of behind the scenes still. So this you heard it here first. Um, there's a lot of talk going on in the car racing industry, and you guys all know by now that VW committed to be like 100% electric by 2030 or 2035, whatever it was. And they own some companies, for example, like Porsche, who are big into car racing. And car racing has been used as kind of an R&D experimental department for car manufacturers. They put new technologies into these cars to see if they make them faster, safer, uh, you know, more efficient and more reliable. So all of these things get tested out in car racing before they end up in your car. Things like seat belts and airbags and all these things were tested in racing before they got to commercial vehicles. So VW is making a point by saying, if EVs are the future, why are we racing with ICEs? So there's, I don't know if it's confirmed or if it's a rumor, but they're just going to walk away from ICE racing, which is huge. I mean, they're in Le Mans series, they're in, IMSA over here. They're known for racing. Porsche is known for racing. So this is huge. They're only going to be EV. And I've been very upset because Formula One and also IndyCar here in the States has not responded. And so this week, Honda announced they were walking away from Formula One. They're not going to be an engine supplier for Formula One for the foreseeable future, for the reason that they're focusing on more sustainable engine technologies. And they need to start research now if they're going to have commercially available automobiles in 10 years,
Mm.
right? The R&D has to start now. So their R&D money is all going to go towards sustainable solutions. Now, the question becomes, well, what is this? And it appears that Formula One is going to take a biofuels route. That's the way it appears. And which is very upsetting to me because I was very excited about 5 years ago when Formula One made the transition to hybrids. And they have made huge stride forwards in hybrid technologies. I know you guys all know Mercedes hybrid technology has been available commercially for years now, and their cars have excelled in Formula One, and all that technology has trickled down to us, the consumer. So that has been a benefit to us from racing. But for them to just go from a leading position 5 years ago to, in my opinion, what accounts to going backwards, really doesn't make much sense to me. And, they have some premier sponsors that are probably playing a big role here, such as Petronas, such as Shell, these large oil companies that have been sponsoring this, the Formula One circuit for years, may have a little more influence on there. I'd like to see the manufacturers have a little more influence. I mean, Mercedes, what are Mercedes, Renault? You've got Mercedes, Renault, and Ferrari are left. So what do they plan to do in 2030? And why are they not pushing Formula One towards that? So I don't know, some exciting discussions. Feel free to let me know in your comments or reach out to us and let me know what you think. I don't know, Eric, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I'm mixed on it as well because first off, Formula One started a subcategory 5-7 years ago called Formula E.
Right.
And they seem like they're putting invested capital into Formula E. And in fact, when I went to my first Formula E race in Brooklyn maybe 3 years ago, they had to swap out cars during the race because the batteries weren't strong enough. And then I think in the last year's full series, I'm not sure what they did this year with COVID, but I think last year they actually got battery technology to the point they didn't have to swap cars out for the race. I'd have to confirm that.
It's true.
And so I do think that there's a place for both right now. And I hate to say this, and people probably get upset with me. I'm not looking for the ICE to completely go away. My favorite car in the world is an Aston Martin. And Aston Martin is most likely going to have electric vehicles, but I very much doubt that they're going to get rid of their ICE vehicles anytime soon. I don't think Ferrari will. I don't think Porsche will. There's going to be a time and place for that. Again, if that means that people are using biofuels in order to power those Porsches and Ferraris and Astons, I'm more than okay with that, right? I want to see us to be smarter about our choices overall. My wife and I, we have 2 ICE engine cars and an electric vehicle project car. We don't drive them because when we were commuting to the city, we use public transportation. So, we use them on weekends, right? And so I don't mind having a big old brawny V8 in my car that gets okay gas mileage because I barely put any miles on it at all. And I just think in terms of taking that to racing, I think you can coexist between having, like you said, an ICE powered racing that is getting greener and making hybrids more technologically advanced and using less gasoline as a result, and having electric vehicle and hydrogen vehicle racing series. Why not, right? Why can't we have all the above? Maybe
Right.
it's difficult in a place like Le Mans where you couldn't intermingle them. But why couldn't you have different categories?
Well, correct. And but I guess the point I want to make is it's supposed to be like an R&D department for new technology. So why don't they make rules that are like, hey, you can have an EV, it has to have this much power and this much storage, and all the design configurations open. You can do whatever you want. You want to have 4 motors, 1 on each wheel. You want to have 2 motors. You want 1 motor. Do whatever you want, and they can innovate. And that's kind of the point to me. So I'd like to see something like that. The rules get relaxed. New technologies come in, and we get to see what innovations fall out. And that's what I want to see. That's what I love about the 60s and the 70s when they had all these innovative ideas and they all just came out because of racing. I want that back again. And I think we're there and we should jump on it.
I think innovation comes in racing, and I also think it comes in the military. And I know the U.S. military, Department of Defense, is spending a ton of research money on fuel cell vehicles, electric motors. And the innovation is already coming out of that. So you have it on the military. Why not have it on racing? And I agree. Like maybe it's hard to market inconsistency like that. So they'd have to, do their homework, but it's worth doing if it benefits society.
Yeah, agreed. All right, that was my soapbox.
Well, we need to. We'll do some research on that over the next week, and God, we'd love to get some comments from people talking about it. So feel free to tell us what you think, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Wow, this is probably our fastest episode in ages.
No, I ran my mouth too much.
Don't worry about it. Anyways, it was a good episode. We covered a lot of ground on different stuff. So as always, we appreciate everybody who's been chiming in, who's been watching us, who's been listening to us. As always, I have to do a little disclaimer. The views and opinions that Lucas and I express are those of ours solely, not any organizations we are affiliated with. Lucas, where can people keep finding us?
Yep. And so you can find us by searching for Pirates of Cleantech at your favorite podcast site. Click the follow button, and then you'll get notified when our new show pops up. We're on most popular podcast sites. And we're also on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. Again, you just search for Pirates of Cleantech on YouTube, click on the subscribe button, and then you need to click on the little bell so you get notified when we upload our latest and greatest episodes.
Fantastic. Yeah, we covered a lot, and let's keep racing forward, pun intended. But anyways, good stuff. We'll have a great guest on next week. We'll hopefully have a new car review on our YouTube site in a couple days, and we're going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, we may have some original research to share with you guys. So we'll see if we can get a special guest to come in and do some analysis with me. So
we're going to have some fun, no doubt about it.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, I'm Eric Planey.
I'm Lucas Finco.
And we always will be the Pirates of Cleantech.
Pirates of Cleantech.
Arr.
Arr. Walk the plank, matey.